Absolutely. When we sold our house in Socastee, we bought out here. 2 days before we were supposed to move in, I came out here with my daughter to look at the house, make sure everything was okay. The whole street was flooded. I could not get into the house. They had a problem at the intersection just two houses beyond us, or a house beyond us, where every time it would rain hard, it would back up because there wasn't decent drainage. There was a problem with the drainage. So the whole intersection flooded and came down. I couldn't have gotten into the house if I wanted to. If I was supposed to move in that day, there's no way I could have done it. That's when I started paying attention to, oh my God, this is going to flood. The other thing that happened is my mortgage company made me get flood insurance.
Mhm.
And I said, that's ridiculous. We're not in a flood zone. And FEMA came out, FEMA checked it out, and they gave me a statement. They said, you're not in a flood zone. It would take a tsunami for the water to get up to your house. It'll never happen. But
Wow.
if they want you to get flood insurance, get it. It's not that expensive. So we got it. Thank
Oh,
God. So
yeah.
I worked really hard going to county council, getting some stuff done to get that intersection fixed. And they finally did. They fixed the intersection so that it doesn't flood anymore. So those houses on that corner and mine as well, and some down the road, don't get flooded anymore. That's when I started having a really big issue with, we got a problem out here.
Mhm.
Didn't think we would ever get flooded. When Florence came along, we took off and we went to Georgia. I said, let's spend a couple days in Georgia. We'll get away from the flood, the hurricane, not the flood, but we get away from the hurricane. So we did. We watched the house. Our neighbor was watching the house and filming it for us, and the water came up, but not high. And we came back 2 days later, and everything was fine. So we moved back into the house. We put all our stuff away. All of a sudden, the fire trucks are going through yelling, you've got 2 hours to get out of here. Everybody get out. The river's coming up. Get out. So we kind of looked at each other like, oh my God, are you kidding me? We just unpacked. We thought we had survived. So we took everything that we could, the major stuff. We threw the dogs in the car, and we went to my friend's house, Sharon and Rob Pollard. They said, come to our house, stay with us as long as you need to. If I was ever in doubt that there was a God, I knew that there was a God. He gave us these people. It was amazing. She had 4 dogs, we had 4 dogs, and they let us come in and move into their house. Like, who does that? They were the nicest, kindest, most beautiful people I've ever met in my life, and so chill. We totally disrupted their life, and they put up with us and never said a word. They were so kind. But as we were sitting there watching, we were watching the water come up and come up and come up into the house because had a drone flying overhead. And I knew we were sunk. I knew we were done. We would drive down the street as far as we could, and then we'd walk to where the barriers were, and you couldn't go any farther. And I remember standing there one day, and Danny Hardy was there. And I got talking to Danny, and I said, this is a mess. And he just shook his head, and he said, this never should have been built. This never should have been built. It floods all the time.
Wow.
And I looked and I said, oh, that's an eye opener. He wasn't on council when that was allowed, so he got a pass. It wasn't his fault this got built, and he knew it shouldn't have. And that
Wow.
tells me there's a lot of places around here that should never have been built. But they did it anyway. They did it for the money. And I said to council after that, I said, you built phase 1 and we flooded, or you built phase 1 and you knew it flooded, then you built phase 2, and then you built phase 3, knowing that we're sitting in a bowl and that we're doomed to failure. But you passed all 3 sections. Why did you do that? And of course, they don't answer you. They don't tell you anything. They just say, thank you for speaking. Yeah, like, right. I remember when I could finally get in the house, we had to take a boat to get in the house because the water just didn't go down. It was 2 weeks later. My house had been sitting underwater for 2 weeks. And when it finally got enough down, we got a boat into the house, and we walked through the smell and the water and everything, got into the house. And it was amazing. It was the most disgusting thing I'd ever seen. The smell was atrocious.
Yeah.
It was dead fish and feces, and it was gross. I was like, oh my God, there's my house. I've only lived here for a year and a half. And all our stuff was ruined. And so I went out and I had a car in the garage, a 2 year and a half old Hyundai Elantra. And I had it in the garage. I figured it'd be safe in the garage. The door was down. It would be safe. Got in the car, turned it on, started it right up, backed it down the garage. And when I did, I heard slosh. It was full of water. The water had come up high enough to get into my car. And it, ruined the car, total that. We had about 8 inches of water in the house.
Wow.
And sitting there for 2 weeks, of course, it sucked up into the walls. So what they had to do is come in and cut the inside of the house in half, basically, and take everything from the midsection on down, all of the wall board and everything. And they cleaned it out, and then they took a couple weeks to dry it out and put all this stuff back on that they had to spray it with the bug spray and stuff. And I think it was almost $100,000 worth of damage.
Wow.
And I lost everything. I mean, we lost every single thing that we had was gone. It had to be thrown out. Washer, dryer, refrigerator, stove, dishwasher, all our furniture. It was gone. We just bought a new bed. We bought one of those, beds that you push the button and the back comes up and the feet come up and all that. It was gone. We managed to save some clothes. We had people were just amazing to us, coming over to, what can we do? What can we do? A lot of people took laundry for us and did a lot of laundry and sanitized it for us. So we got to save some stuff. We had a dry cleaner. They go to our church and they dry cleaned all our clothes that we needed to try to save. So we had a lot of help. And in the meantime, we're living with these poor people, the Pollards, turning their house upside down. We were in and out and in and out. And my dogs were fighting because they were so beside themselves. They didn't know what to do. 2 of them ended up in the hospital, and one of them ended up in J. Rubin Dogs. He bit somebody. He bit my husband. In fact, he bit his finger off, or part of his finger off. So they put him in quarantine for 2 weeks. And that was just, we would go and see him and cry every single day when we'd leave, because he didn't know why he was there. And we didn't want to leave him there, but we had to. So that was horrific in the midst of all this, to go through that. So we ended up getting a condo, and we moved out of the Pollard's house so that we would still remain friends, because they probably would have killed us. They didn't ever say it, but I think they had to have had enough. So we got a condo, and it was pretty awful. There was no elevator, and we're schlepping dogs up and down 3 flights of stairs. And we finally said, when you get in a toilet and running water, I am going back in my house. I don't care what. So we did. We got back in just before Christmas.